We had dined at sunset on the broad roof of the old tower because it was cooler there during the great heat of summer. Besides, the little kitchen was built at one corner of the great square platform, which made it more convenient than if the dishes had to be carried down the steep stone steps, broken in places and everywhere worn with age. My friend, who sometimes visits me in my summer solitude, is an artist by profession, a Scandinavian by birth, and a cosmopolitan by force of circumstances. We had dined at sunset. The sunset glow had reddened and faded again, and the evening purple steeped the vast chain of the mountains that embrace the deep gulf to eastward and rear themselves higher and higher toward the south. It was hot, and we sat at the landward corner of the platform, waiting for the night breeze to come down from the lower hills. The color sank out of the air. There was a little interval of deep gray twilight, and a lamp sent a yellow streak from the open door of the kitchen where the men were getting their supper. And then the moon rose suddenly above the crest of the promontory, flooding the platform and lighting up every little spur of rock and knoll of grass below us, down to the edge of the motionless water. My friend lighted his pipe and sat looking at a spot on the hillside. I knew what he was looking at, and for a long time past I had wondered whether he would ever see anything there that would fix his attention. I knew that spot well. It was clear that he was interested at last, though it was a long time before he spoke. Like most painters, he trusts to his own eyesight, as a lion trusts his strength and a stag his speed, and he is always disturbed when he cannot reconcile what he sees with what he believes he ought to see. "It's strange," he said. "Do you see that little mound just on the side of the boulder?" "Yes," I said, and I guessed what was coming. "It looks like a grave," observed Holger. "Very true. It does look like a grave." "Yes," continued my friend, his eyes still fixed on the spot. "But the strange thing is that I see the body lying on the top of it." "Of course," continued Holger, turning his head on one side as artists do, "it must be an effect of light. In the first place, it's not a grave at all, and secondly, if it were, the body would be inside and not outside. Therefore, it's an effect of the moonlight. Don't you see it?" "Perfectly. I always see it on moonlight nights." "It doesn't seem to interest you much," said Holger. "On the contrary, it does interest me, though I am used to it. And you're not so far wrong either. The mound is really a grave." "Nonsense," cried Holger incredulously. "I suppose you'll tell me what I see lying on it is really a corpse." "No," I answered, "it's not. I know, because I have taken the trouble to go down and see." "Then what is it?" asked Holger. "It's nothing." You mean that it's an effect of light, I suppose. Perhaps it is. But the inexplicable part of the matter is that it makes no difference whether the moon is rising or setting, or waxing or waning. If there's any moonlight at all, from east or west or overhead, so long as it shines on the grave, you can see the outline of the body on top. Holger stirred up his pipe with the point of his knife, then used his fingers for a stopper. When the tobacco burned well, he rose from his chair. "If you don't mind," he said, "I'll go down and take a look at it." He left me, crossed the roof, and disappeared down the dark steps. I did not move, but sat looking down until he came out of the tower below. I heard him humming an old Danish song as he crossed the open space in the bright moonlight, going straight to the mysterious mound. When he was 10 paces from it, Holger stopped short, made 2 steps forward, and then 3 or 4 backward, and then stopped again. I knew what that meant. He had reached the spot where the thing ceased to be visible, where, as he would have said, the effect of light changed. And then he went on till he reached the mound and stood upon it. I could see the thing still, but it was no longer lying down. It was on its knees now, winding its white arms around Holger's body and looking up into his face. A cool breeze stirred my hair at that moment as the night wind began to come down from the hills, but it felt like a breath from another world. The thing seemed to be trying to climb to its feet, helping itself up by Holger's body while he stood upright, quite unconscious of it, and apparently looking toward the tower, which is very picturesque when the moonlight falls upon it on that side. "Come along," I shouted. "Don't stay there all night." It seemed to me that he moved reluctantly as he stepped from the mound, or else with difficulty. That was it. The thing's arms were still around his waist, but its feet could not leave the grave. As he came slowly forward, it was drawn and lengthened like a wreath of mist, thin and white, till I saw distinctly that Holger shook himself, as a man does who feels a chill. At the same instant, a little wail of pain came to me on the breeze. It might have been the cry of the small owl that lives among the rocks. And the misty presence floated swiftly back from Holger's advancing figure and lay once more at its length upon the mound. Again I felt the cool breeze in my hair, and this time an icy thrill of dread ran down my spine. And I remembered very well what I had once gone down there alone in the moonlight, that presently, being near, I had seen nothing, and that, like Holger, I had gone and had stood upon the mound, and I remembered how, when I came back, sure that there was nothing there, I had felt the sudden conviction that there was something after all, if I would only look behind me. I remembered the strong temptation to look back, a temptation I had resisted as unworthy of a man of sense, until, to get rid of it, I had shaken myself, just as Holger did. And now I knew that those white, misty arms had been round me too. I knew it in a flash, and I shuddered as I remembered that I had heard the night owl then too. But it had not been the night owl. It was the cry of the thing. I refilled my pipe, poured out a cup of strong southern wine. In less than a minute, Holger was seated beside me again. "Of course there's nothing down there," he said, "but it's creepy all the same. Do you know, when I was coming back, I was so sure that there was something behind me that I wanted to turn around and look. It was an effort not to. He laughed a little, knocked the ashes out of his pipe, and poured himself out some wine. And for a while, neither of us spoke, and as the moon rose higher, we both looked at the thing that lay on the mount.